What's up, rock stars? It's Jim Chandler with Rock Your Best Vocals, here for another Monday Mindset Motivation. So, what does someone do to create a Monday Mindset Motivation video when one is not very motivated? I am motivated to make this, but I don't feel very motivated. This is because I watched a video yesterday from a channel called Mary Splendor, who talks about, I'm going to refer to it as Sue, and her last name is Aside, but I'm going to refer to this thing that you can't mention as Sue. And the funny thing is that that's the very thing that needs to be talked about. We need to talk about Sue, but we can't, especially on this platform. We can't talk about her because she's very triggering for a lot of people. Now, I am not a medical professional. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a professional in that way, but I'm somebody who's experienced the dance with Sue a few times. Sue is a very attractive person at times, because sometimes when you're feeling lonely, there doesn't feel like any way out. So if you are a Generation X male, then this is directed at you. If you're not a Generation X male, you can listen, but I would ask you please to share this with a Generation X male. Someone like me. I'm not a boomer, for those of you who mistakenly referred to me as a boomer in the past. That's my dad's era, okay? So, Gen X is anybody from, I think it's 1965 to 1980, or in around that. Anybody from 43 on up, or you could say 40 if you want. But Sue is a plague that is affecting my Generation X brothers. Middle-aged men are the highest rate of guys that dance with Sue, and that many of my friends have succeeded in completing the dance with Sue, which is why I do feel compelled to speak about this, because of my many attempts to dance with Sue and some of their successful dances with Sue. And by successes, I don't mean that it's a success. I mean that it's a tragedy. The tragic dance with Sue. But they completed the tragic dance with Sue, as have many of our artistic brothers and sisters. But this is something that's plaguing middle-aged men around the world. My interpretation of that, the reasons for that, are because we have tremendous pressures on us as men to perform, to provide, to be tough, and to not talk about Sue. Not only in this forum here, but with each other, with each other. We just don't talk. Guys just don't talk about things generally. But I want to change that. I'm not sure exactly how or what that is going to look like. I know there are organizations that Mary talks about in that video, which I'm going to link that video down below. I would suggest to watch that after this one, of course. But I want to be there to share everything, my ups and downs, and my eventual breakthrough. Because I grew up in a very violent household to where I knew that this isn't the way people should live in bad relationships. So I did have a very turbulent relationship, had a son from that at 19 years old. And then we split up, and I didn't get very much access to him. Then when I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19 to become a rock star, I met my wife. And it was like glorious. Like I was, this is my soulmate. I mean, I've never been in a relationship with someone so beautiful and someone so amazing. And then we got pregnant with our first daughter. And I said, like, I knew I wanted to marry her, so I said, well, this is the time. I'm just gonna like, let's get married. So we got married on the beach. It was the most beautiful wedding ever. And then we were living in Los Angeles, and my band was doing great. Like we were playing all the places. Like we were playing the Whiskey, the Roxy, Coconut Teaser. We were playing these places on a regular basis, and we were doing very well, like with our music, such to the extent that we were starting to get some notice, some attention from some record labels. Now they would be small time labels or some kind of spec deals and things like that we thought they weren't like something that we should go for. But we were getting attention, and it was great. It was starting to really happen for us. And then my wife got pregnant. That's my fault. I mean, I had something to do with it. She didn't get pregnant separately. But she became pregnant with our second child. And she didn't really have any family in Los Angeles, so she said, I want to move back to Ireland, and I didn't want to. But she said, I'm moving back with or without you. So I had to quit the band, and they all hated me for the next 10 years. But I was in Ireland with my life, with my wife, with this new life. I was there with my life, with my wife. And I went to college here. Everything was going great. It was going great. But I was going to college. I needed to get a job. So I was working full time, and I was going to college 4 nights a week. And I was struggling to perform in all these areas. Fatherhood. Trying to get ahead at work so I could make more money to provide better for the family. And the struggle that I had with college, because I did economics and there was a lot of math, and I failed math in high school. I failed algebra twice, and economics is so heavily invested in algebra that you have to be well versed in algebra to succeed in economics. But anyway, I succeeded. I got my degree in economics and social policy. And I also got ahead in my job to where it was like I was earning a lot more money, I had a lot more responsibility, and I was proving to perform very well. Like I was working like almost round the clock, such that I started to neglect the family a bit because I had such pressure at work. I mean, I was looking after a factory that we had in Singapore, and then Chicago, and then on the West Coast, and it was like everything was like, night and day. You could work night and day. And I did a lot of times work night and day and weekends. And then one day my wife came to me and she said, I'm leaving, because all we did was fought on the weekends. And I was working on the weekend, and she was like, come down and hang out with us. And I said, I can't, I'm working. And she said, well, I'm leaving. So this escalated into a big fight. And I said, okay, leave then. Just leave. And so she stormed off downstairs. About 10 minutes later, I heard the front door slam and her car start and drive off with the kids in it. And I knew then she was serious. So then we got a divorce. And that was one of my lowest points. And that's when Sue and I, yet again, we started to dance a lot. Sue and I were dancing a lot at that stage. Because what would happen is I would get the weekends with my daughters, and it would be amazing, so great. And then I had to always take them back to drop them off with my ex-wife. And she started dating some other guy not long after we broke up, I might add, which was like a dagger to my heart. And so I would go back to my house at the time, which was our house, our family home. She moved in with her parents. And right around that time, once I completed college, I was, that was over. I didn't have any college anymore. And then I was made redundant from my job. So this job that I committed everything and lost my family for decided one day that they didn't need me anymore. So I was there with no job, with nothing to do, except sit there and be alone and think about how alone I was. And so Sue and I danced a lot from Monday to Friday. And then it was good because I had my kids at the weekend. So then I got back into music. After 4 years of not being in the music, I got a job with the band as a singer. So I would occasionally go out. I mean, when they had gigs, I would go out and sing with them. And occasionally, we would get paid gigs, and I would make a bit of money on that, like on the side, which was cool. It wasn't anything full time. It wasn't like a lot of, but it was something. And I was singing again, which made me feel really good. And I still danced with the idea of Sue, but things were getting better. And then there was many years after that where I was playing in bands, and I was getting the experience of, a lot of one-night stands, still a very lonely life. There were a lot of one-night stands where I would just be like, no, this isn't the person, but I wouldn't make that decision until after I slept with them. And then it was like, there were a lot of mistakes made in terms of I shouldn't have done a lot of those things. I mean, I was just driven by just a misinterpretation of what love and relationships were or should be. And then I met this girl who was quite a bit younger than me, 22 years younger than me. And we just got on incredibly well. And we were just like, it was perfect. Everything was just perfect. Everything was absolutely just like, you would be like, this is like the perfect girl for me. She was the perfect girl for me, with except the age difference. Everything was literally perfect. We got along so well together. Everything was great. Like I said, except the age difference, which never really presented a problem. I mean, because she was much older mentally. She was very mature for her age. And she was very together. She had her life together. She had her mind together. She wasn't needy. She wasn't over demanding. She was understanding. I mean, and just, if you could say, this is the perfect person for me, that's who that was. And like I said, the age gap was never an issue until it was. So she came to me, now this is going back into 2019, she came to me and she said, I haven't really lived any of my life. You have lived all of your life already, multiple times over. Like, I had so much, like, so many things behind me, which you now understand. Like, I've lived so much life in the years that I've been here, and I'm grateful for that. But she left because she wanted to go out and find herself. And at that time, I had a spiritual awareness of the fact that you will only find yourself within. Like, that's where you will find yourself, if you look within and meditate and seek inside of you. But that wasn't enough for her, so she left. Anyway, as I said, I was already on a spiritual path where I knew there was such power inside me that I sat with that a lot inside me. And I became more and more spiritual awakening, or more and more spiritually awakened and at peace and well-being, like, all the time. So it had been so long since I saw Sue, and I was so spiritually awakened that Sue didn't even feature in any of that. And I was like, I'm above that. Like, Sue is no longer in my life, and I feel amazing. And then the pandemic hit, and my band, who I was performing full-time with, couldn't play gigs anymore. So we were on lockdown for like a couple of years, okay, where I couldn't go out and sing. So my vocal muscles atrophied to where I couldn't sing anymore. When I went back after lockdown, I couldn't sing at the capacity that I could before. And that was absolutely soul destroying, because I felt like, what am I going to do? Like, this is the only thing I've ever done, really, that I've enjoyed. This is the only thing that I've ever really wanted to do with my life ever since I was a kid. But I can't do this anymore the way I used to. It didn't feel the same. My body was just literally not performing because of the effects of COVID. When I got COVID, I was really bad with lung capacity, coughing, sinus infection. Everything that you need to be able to sing had stopped working. And then when I went back to sing, it was tragic, like a tragic return to singing. It was like gig after gig, I was trying different things and kept damaging my voice to the point where it was like I then couldn't do some gigs because I was actually literally singing incorrectly on a malfunctioning body, which would cause me to have to sing incorrectly to get through the gig. But this is my only way of making money, aside from, the few coaching clients that I had. And then on top of that, last year, I pulled my groin. So I couldn't dance even at the gigs. I mean, I could barely move at the gigs. So I could barely move, barely sing. And it's just me in my place here. I mean, now that my ex-partner is gone, it's just me, and I have to walk my dog twice a day, and she's relentless for walks. Like, a 10-minute walk does not do this dog. She wants to go longer. She always wants to push at least like an hour. So I would take an excruciating walk. I mean, and like it was excruciating to walk. Like, it was so painful. It was painful even just to sit there, to lie there. There were many times where I couldn't sleep because every time I moved, I was like, wake up in severe pain. But I went to physio, and I'm recovering now. But at the time when I was in such excruciating pain and my voice wasn't working, Sue was knocking on the door and ringing on the phone. And I was at the lowest point that I've had in such a long time. All I could do around the place between walks and between gigs was lie there. I was literally just existing. I was trying to rehabilitate my voice, trying to rehabilitate my leg, and things weren't working for a while. And I just felt like I'm completely physically broken. I'm just like ready to give up because like I don't know what I can do. Like I like that's it. It's like game over. I can't sing the way I used to, which is soul destroying, and I can't walk, run, jump, do all the things that I used to, which is again soul destroying. As a man who at one time I would go around saying like, I had the identity of like a Navy SEAL. I was like doing Navy SEAL workouts, running every day. I'm very active when my body is at 100%. But basically it's at, well, I don't want to say now because it's improved a lot, but there was at one stage where my body was at like 10%. And Sue was knocking on the door and ringing the bell and phoning the phone and everything. So I've been through so much, but I've overcome. I know now how not to answer the door when Sue comes knocking, or how to ignore the phone when Sue comes ringing on the phone. And that's really just by my spiritual awakening. So I know this has been a super long story, and I hope that it's impacted you in such a way that you will want to do something to join the movement to help others. And if you are feeling that way, reach out and speak to somebody. I don't care who it is, somebody's going to listen. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what it is. The one thing that kept me going through all of those ups and downs was there is a tomorrow that is a new tomorrow. Tomorrow does not have to be a repeat of today. It's a brand new slate. Every day is a new day, a new chance to live and to overcome whatever it is, but we have to talk about it. So like I said, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, what it's going to look like, but please stick around because I want to provide a resource that men can get together and we can talk about things without feeling bad about talking about it to someone who may not understand. So it's going to be a group of like-minded individuals that can understand and help our brothers to get through and get past this plague and to no longer entertain answering the door just to see if Sue's there, if that was her knocking. No longer picking up the phone and having a talk with Sue and trying to figure out how you can get that dance with Sue, because that dance ain't going nowhere. You don't want to dance with Sue, because that dance leads to nothing but pain for everyone involved. So I know this hasn't been tremendously motivating, but it's something that I felt like I need to share. And if you could share this with someone who is a Gen X male, because that's the biggest part of the population that this plague is affecting. So I appreciate you listening to all this. Rock your best vocals where your best keeps getting better. See you on the next one.